If Russia creates SVO museums in the occupied territories to display looted items, isn't this a new form of legalizing crime through culture?
Oh, absolutely. But you see, they deny completely. The Ukrainian culture to them doesn't exist as such. It's just something rural, something from the villages. The Ukrainian language is portrayed as a kind of a broken language. And today, the horrid situation that one of the reasons of their war was the alleged persecution of the Russian language in Ukraine, which has never happened. And I can attest to that. I was in Ukraine after 2014, and the Russian was freely spoken. So, but now they are actually in occupied territories, banned the Ukrainian language. So, yes, this is an attempt to legitimize what they're doing. And they have these museums of this, special, what they call special military operations. What can you say? This is a very tragic situation. I mean, it's almost how the Nazis did what they did in occupied territory without any consideration for cultural heritage. I think one of your archaeologists has recently suggested, I saw in the news, that Ukraine needs to have more of a representative of cultural heritage management embedded with the army and working on basically recording what is being lost and what is being stolen. I believe they took the entire Kherson Museum, the collection at the short period of occupation, and transported it to Russia.
Yeah, and it feels like the problem with this is that Russians, they don't believe they are stealing. They don't think they are stealing.
Yeah, but you see, they don't think they're conquering anything. They're thinking the whole thing is theirs. As Putin said, I believe it was in St. Petersburg Economic Forum, he again repeated this nonsense that the Ukrainians and the Russians are the same people. But then he says, in this saying, all of Ukraine is ours. So if they say all of Ukraine is theirs, so they're just bringing it back. In their language, they're liberating Ukraine, right? So if they're liberating, they're basically bringing back what is Russian. It's not Ukraine in their view. And this is generations. This is a return of 100% territorial colonialism. And even in a sense, it's almost worse than colonialism under the empires, like old-style empires, because even the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, conquered the Balkans, like what is Serbia today. They didn't consider them Turkish, right? Or when even the Russian Empire would conquer Finland, yeah, it was the Russian Empire, but it wasn't Russia. Today, Ukraine is portrayed as Russia, period, at least most of it. And I suspect, maybe except for Galiciana, in Putin views, everything else is historic Russia.
It's super depressing to hear, to be honest. Super depressing to hear.
Yes, it's basically an annihilation of entire nation, identity, history. It's a horrible thing. I mean, in the 21st century, if you think, we are back to basically pre-World War I mentality. And again, I say in many respects, it's worse even than in those times, because these were purely imperial conquest. Now it's a denial of the entire nation, language, culture, heritage, or everything. And they also, which is ludicrous, they try to say that the Russian culture has been canceled. I live in America. I'm sick, like almost. I love Tchaikovsky, but they play probably, like I would say, I drive a lot to work, and there is this classical radio, and I would say like 20% of music is Russian music, probably classical music. The same in the theaters. I was in Tbilisi, Georgia, just a couple of years ago. They have the Russian Drama Theater, it's still called the Griboyedov Theater. So this is complete lies that the culture has been canceled. I was in Amsterdam just less than a year ago. There was a concert of Prokofiev there. A friend of mine invited me. So this is just absurd. They cancel people like Gergiev and do it justly so. Like, of course, like Gergiev has been compared with I actually wrote a piece 10 years ago, was attacked, where I compared Gergiev with Wilhelm Furtwängler, which was a super famous conductor. He was a Hitler's conductor. And after the war, he was offered a job in America, and all American Jewish musicians said they'll never play with him. So the offer was rescinded. But so, yes, the person like Gergiev or maybe Netrebko or people who are closely associated, or Yuri Bashmiat, but no one is canceling the culture. This is nonsense.
And going back to Crimea, can the destruction of the Bakhchisarai Khan's palace be considered cultural genocide of the Crimean Tatar? And does the West understand the scale of this crime?
Yes, it's horrendous. Generally, as you know, the Crimean Tatars overwhelmingly supported being part of, they wanted being part of Ukraine, so staying in Ukraine and Crimea staying with Ukraine. Because they've been persecuted for years in Russia. They were considered, first of all, we know about genocide, resettlement, but then they were never considered with this bigotry and racism. They were never considered equal to the Russian people. And Crimea, historically, if anyone can claim this land historically, more recently, it's the Crimean Tatars, because before Catherine the Great conquered Crimea. So yeah, that's a horrible crime. And of course, one of you, Umerov, is a Crimean Tatar, right?
Yes.
Your politician.
Yes.
So you have
Minister Umerov. Yes.
Yes. So you have Crimean Tatars in your government, which is, I can imagine that happening, for example, in Russia. So yes, this is a horrendous thing to do.